And we are live at Berger Park. And we actually have two things happening right now at Berger Park. We've got rehearsal behind me for Transformation. They're doing their little warm-up. They're so awesome. All of them are doing the warm-up thing. Okay, now we're gonna go outside. This is Berger Park. If you guys don't know about Berger Park, it is an awesome place to be. There's lots of theater, there's the lake, there's classes. Shout out to JD. And now we are at the Coach House. We are live at the Coach House, about to go into our panel. We got Shay, our social media person, in the background. Hi, Shay.
Hi.
And now we are going to go into our panel discussion.
Oh, here we go.
That's how you.
You guys can see us, so
Hi, Becca, and hi, Aunt Pat.
hello! Yeah, so you got your arms. Okay, so I'm gonna introduce myself. Hi, I'm Hannah Rose. I'm the co-artistic director of Nothing Without a Company, and we are at a live panel discussion about site-specific playwriting. We've got a lovely bunch of people with us. I'm gonna introduce now.
9 years ago, 2007, and I started off getting my really working on film right now more than anything else because that's what we're focusing on this quarter. But I also do a lot of 24-hour play festivals, which to me is a great exercise in just writing really quickly and having a really good product at the end to show for it.
And I think that film translates to site-specific theater, and we can talk about that later. But yeah, Erin, you had a nod with the 24-hour festival. I'd like to hear you.
Oh, 24-hour festivals are fantastic. I think they're a really good time. They're a really great way to meet people really fast, really quickly, and to understand how to write for the space that you are given and the people that you are given. Because a lot of, I don't know what, sorry, well, that was just me moving my chair. But
Yeah, tell us about your background and like what you've been doing, Erin. We know each other through school, so
yeah,
stoked
we went
to
to
see
college
you again.
together. I'm stoked to see you as well. You got like super hot.
Shucks.
Her wife is right there.
There was like another direction. I went that direction. I was just like, well, I've got my flip-flops and
I think
leggings
you're hot,
on.
too. Just the way you are.
Shut your face. No, I think 24-hour play festivals are really interesting and really important, I think, because you get to be introduced to a group of like however many actors they give you. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 3, 4, 2, and the playwright gets 24 hours to write specifically for that group of people and know what space they're specifically writing for. And so if you know, and props, you know, you usually get to glimpse the props, you're like, well, that's an act. We've got an act. Okay, can I incorporate that? And I think that's interesting in and of itself.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. That's cool. We all got phones. But it influences the way you write based on the opportunities that you have. And I think that
I want to know your background because we don't.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We don't know live-wise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, know your background.
I'm a playwright. I'm getting my MFA at Hollins University right now. I'm working on my thesis with Carl Hancock Rux, who's amazing in Chicago, in New York. We're in Chicago. If you follow his Facebook feed, he makes all of us look like super losers. He's amazing. Like, he posted a picture the other day with Solange Knowles, and I was like, I hate you, but please give me notes on my play. He's great. I've worked with Bob Moss from Playwrights Horizons in New York, which is really great. I've worked with a lot of really amazing people, and but I always kind of like to utilize the idea that Chicago utilizes, which is the idea, I'm just rambling, the idea of like, but it comes from improv, which is very Chicago, which is like, you need to know these 3 things immediately. Where are you? Who are you? Like, what are you doing? So the space that you're in is another character. And even though that can be annoying sometimes when everyone's like, you know, are you a Samantha, a Miranda, a Carrie, you know? Or the 5th character, New York City. And you're like, well, yeah, but New York City is very important in that show. Like, the space and the place is very important.
Yeah. Okay, Alejandro, I want to hear about your background and tell us about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were talking ahead of the panel about how I feel sort of like I'm the odd person out, because I don't consider myself a playwright in the traditional sense of like sitting down and writing a play. One of my mentors really instilled in me the idea of a playwright as like a shipwright, like a builder, like someone who assembles a play from different parts and pieces, and that's typically what my process looks like is devising with an ensemble, taking their ideas, impulses, and even bits of text that they're generating, and then trying to assemble it all and fit it together. And I think like absolutely a space is a huge part of that. And oftentimes when we're playing around, you know, we're not making unless we're in the space, and we're making to the space. So like I just got done with Rabbit Bat Theatricals, working on a show called Dog Night in the Ginder Mansion, just like steps from here. You can't see it, it's right behind. Oh, and you can see it, it's right behind. And so we spent our time building that play in those rooms and in that mansion, and being like, okay, well, if this is our architecture, if this is the history of it, what comes out of that? What ideas bubble out of that? And how do we build sort of like dramaturgy and forward movement that is very responsive to what's here? So
Yeah. What's your preference? Because that's where I always get stuck. I'm not a writer, but I'm a producer, and I need to have a space for my writer. So I kind of want to know what you guys would prefer.
Well, if I may. Yeah. Okay. I think there are 2 plays that I've written, and one I started out with knowing where I wanted it to be, and it was a basement bar in Chicago, and I knew that that's where I wanted that play to take place, and I wanted it to take place in real time, and that was like the stage 1 for me. And then I figured out what the story was going to be. And then the second play that I wrote, I knew I wanted it to be like an absurdist play about privilege and how some people can get up the stairs and some people can't, and there's invisible walls. And then eventually I determined that it would take place like in a laundry room with like laundry falling from the sky. So I think well, yeah, and I think
Welcome to Chicago.
But I think the location is always going to be a character. And I feel like when you figure out what play it is you're writing, whether you start with the location or you discover the location, that either way, it's equally important.
Yeah, because the space informs the play, and the play informs the space. And so if we were to be doing something in the mansion that you're doing it in, knowing that there's street traffic, like knowing what's around the space, the sounds, the lighting, like the natural elements of the space itself is what you need to adapt to or adapt from. So to me, it really doesn't matter if it's like, here's a space, write a play, or you wrote a play, we want to put it in this space. It's all adaptation at some point.
And the other part that I would add to that is also the history,
yes.
and any sort of connections that you make. Even if it's not something that is going to come out in the piece, or even if it's not something that people are aware of, I think that has a power to it. So, like the fact that the Gugner Mansion, for example, I'm going to keep calling back to it, was built, during or right before Prohibition, and that there's this element of that history. It was owned for and used by a small sect of the Catholic Church for a long period of time. The family that commissioned it and built it, he was a CEO of a pharmaceutical company, right? Like all of these little bits of history, whether or not people are aware of it, I think can help to inform the piece that you're making, because those connections, those connotations come out because it's how the space itself was made, and how could it not,
Well, and I think also it's a very, like, when you talk about site-specific theater, it's very kind of Chicago in its way. And I want to say that because, like, if you go through the whole improv, annoyance, Second City, I.O., rigmarole, you go through the idea that when you're creating the scene and you're creating these people with these emotions that exist, the space automatically has to influence what you do, even though it's very invisible and you're miming it at the time when you do the improv in Chicago. When you do the improv in Chicago, I sounded like a douchebag there, but when you do it and you take that invisible knife and you cut those carrots and you inform your partner that you're in a kitchen, like just informing your partner where you are automatically gives them an idea of what this existence is. Are you roommates? Are you a husband and wife? What are you? But you're in a kitchen and you live in the same space, and then your partner gets to make that decision, and then you get to build on top of that. And I think that especially if you look at a lot of Chicago playwrights, I think that's really important with the way they write. Like everyone, the location is always so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you find that it's easier to be inspired when you have a space in particular that you're writing for, or do you think it kind of hinders you in your creativity?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, for the shows that I make, typically, we're going into rehearsal without a script. You're building the show in rehearsal in the space and off of prompts that are space specific or space responsive. So the idea is all right, find a corner where you can grab an audience member and have a unique experience or exchange with them, and how does the corner that you're in help decide what that experience is going to be. So I guess also in answer to the question that prompted this, I'm not the type of person who's going to be sitting, writing, and then hoping to find a space. It's the piece isn't being written unless the space has been found and when the project's moving forward. So there's a kernel of an idea. We're going into rehearsal, maybe with a structure, maybe with a frame, themes that we want to play with, but all of that is going to get blown up by what can we do well here.
Yeah, I'm one of those writers who I sit in the dark room and write all by myself with maybe my cats around me. But I guess to me, it's not about inspiration, because as a writer, I'm inspired by so much. It's the idea of a structure. So having a space to me allows for the structure of which I will write the play, because the space automatically can tell me what I can or can't do as far as tech, as far as, you know, are we doing daytime shows? How does that inform the space in the play? So I think to me it really is like, it allows me a structure that I don't find when writing for a theatrical space where you can just build the world. And so it's like, oh, I can have the moving train in this actual like black box. Wherein, like, if we're in a coach house, I want it to be a coach house. So it's a lot easier for me to then write because I have these kind of guidelines to go with.
Well, it's what you call the box. Like, as soon as someone gives you the box, within you can write. It's like that much easier because all of a sudden you have limits, and you're like, oh, so if I want to go to Israel, I can't. We need to bring that guy back here because we're existing in the box.
Maybe that's why I'm not a great writer, is because I really don't like staying in boxes.
I was about to say, I was like, do you?
All over the place.
You're like, I really want to go to Israel all the time. I was like, that's
Maybe not Israel, but yeah.
Yeah. No, but I feel like when someone. This could
Sorry,
go.
Jews.
So, no, whoa.
Whoa! You guys, wow.
They wouldn't know looking at you.
This is why we're over here.
This is getting way too political.
Do we have any questions from the audience yet?
No, but please, audience, if you guys have any questions, we've had several people join us, so shout out Michael J. Sanau and Patrice Villars, Becca Epstein, Laura Jones, Jerry Vasiletos,
Thank you guys.
Shay
for
Boyd,
joining us.
Jill Wolf, John Bridges, William James Ranke. Only William does my hair.
To have you guys, we're talking about site-specific theater and what that means to people. Because people ask me all the time, what is site-specific theater?
What do you tell them when they ask you what is site-specific?
That's a good question. So I say it means that we do theater in unusual spaces, not in a theater space.
Wow.
That's what I say.
Well, see, and I think what's great about that, especially for writers, is like if someone says, "Hey, we're doing this on this, like we're doing it on a weird floating thing in a duck pond," and I'll be like, "Okay, cool," but it limits you in a way that allows you to be bigger, if that makes sense. Like you're like, okay, I got a 12 by 12 floating thing of wood in a duck pond, and Girl Scouts are watching. So now I need to know that like this is the play that I'm writing. So am I gonna write about cookies? I don't know. Am I gonna write
Sounds like
about?
a producer's nightmare.
Well, I'm just using that as an example. That never happened to me.
My first question is, where would the audience be? That's always my first question as a producer.
On the coast,
Okay.
like in the sand.
Do you guys think of that at all? And when you're writing the play, do you think like, okay, I need to figure out a big enough space?
No, that's for the directors. That's what directors do.
See, I'm typically filling both hats, so yes. And I'm also thinking, so my director brain is going, yes, where is the audience going to be? How are we going to move people through the space? Because actual movement needs to be a part of the forward dramatic movement. But then my writer brain is thinking about how do those limits and how do those sort of just like practical concerns shape the arc of the whole piece. So like how can our climax link up to something that we're doing in the space? Does it mean that everyone has to now assemble to the main room? Does it mean that we like blow everything up? Does it mean that we are shutting off the lights in the whole house? Like what is the practical thing director me can do that will please writer me in terms of what this whole thing wants to be?
Well, just to kind of piggyback on that, like when we did do Voice, and it was supposed to take place like in a basement bar in Chicago, and we did it in the tiny theater in Profiles, it's an alley, which when me and my director and our producer, we walked into the space and they were like, this is where the world premiere of your play is gonna happen, and I started bawling. Like, I just lost my mind crying. I was like, this is not how I see anything happening. This is not gonna work. This is the worst.
You just felt the bad vibes in that space.
Well, that might have been a thing too. But like when you write a play, I mean,
I'm sorry, for those people who are watching, that company no longer exists because of some drama. You can look it up if you'd like.
We weren't in the official profiles, but we were
Drama is an understatement. Can I just say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were in the sides.
Just look up Profiles Chicago Theater.
Join us in January.
The play was about military rape, okay? It was about everything that they were doing wrong. But anyways, don't judge the play.
So the space didn't feel like it was where you would written.
Right. So I walk in as a playwright and I lose my mind, right? Like weeping, like crying, just being like, where are you gonna put 3 doors? There's no room for 3 doors. Like, you know, and the director goes like chill your roll. You got this. We're gonna be fine. And then, like, you know, I went and I saw it, and she was right. Like, sometimes as a playwright, what you have in your head can always be manipulated depending on what space you get.
Well, and that's the beauty of collaboration, finding those directors who know how to direct site-specific theater or site-specific plays, is because you have this like amazing synergy all of a sudden where it's like, yes, what the thing you did made sense for my play, and now I can change this little line to make sense for the space and for you as a director. And so, like, that's a really cool thing that happens in the collaboration of theater, and the reason why theater is a collaboration is because if we're just doing this on our own, like playwright, directing, producing, all of it, then it's not going to be a good show comparatively than having all of these other people come in with their ideas and their visions for the thing.
Well, and I think that's also something that's interesting is like, once you allow different brains into your vision, which I think is what's like one of the most beautiful things about theater, is once you let other people in and you're able to just exhale and give it to them, then you get to get blown away by every moment that you wrote and what you did that affected them, and see it in an entirely different perspective. You know what I mean?
And is that like for devising theater or site-specific theater, is that, how does that feel for you? Because since you're working automatically with a collective, with like all of these people.
And it's always, and it is always in or off of or responsive to the space. So we never have that moment of like, oh no, it's not what we wanted. We're always building it. So this was, for example, this was several years ago. Me and a collaborator of mine, Ned Baker, were putting together an adaptation of Treasure Island. We knew it was going to be outside, and we knew that we had these 3 different spaces to work with. And we knew we wanted to generally follow the structure of the play, but kind of like blow it up a little bit. And it was outdoors, and the spaces that we were working in sort of like told us a little bit. It was the third collaborator, so not just like the inspiration, but also just like telling us like, you know what, like you need a moment of spectacle at the end, here's a lake, like have some fight scenes on, like, and splash around in the lake. And I think that there is that you never have to give up control, because you never had it to begin with, in a way. Like, and I think that's also true with sort of pieces that move as well, because you only have a certain degree of control. You have a very different amount of control over where the audience is going to be and how they are going to be experiencing it. For Dog Night, it was free roaming. So at no point were we ever really, except for at the beginning and the end, in charge of where an audience member was going to be throughout the whole thing. So on that end, we're sort of like, your experience is your own. But at the same time, how can we guide and give clues and hints as to like, here are some things you can experience. Here are some things you can experience. I forgot your question.
Yeah. No, I know. Thank you for bringing up the outside work, because we, in the past, nothing but companies done a lot of traveling performances in parks, and what we figured out was that yes, the audience wanted to be guided, and so we gave them a wrangler, and we said, okay, this person is basically the box office / like supposed to be wrangling the audience, and we gave them like a little gay flag, and we said, okay, every time the flag goes up, that means you need to walk and follow me, and then when it goes down, then you can pop a squat or just stand and chill. But what do you do with shows that, yeah, the audience can like sleep no more, the audience can just travel wherever
they have
want.
levels, they have stories.
I get so nervous not having like a babysitter for the audience, because I am the type of audience member that will find that place that you're not supposed to find and be like, wait, what is this for? There's a whole bunch of wires here. So what are you? I don't touch the wires. But.
I think part of that is like it's designed to about how you regulate your audience. Like I don't know if anyone saw it. This was forever ago, but 448 Psychosis that Sean Brady did in Hypocrites, where like you got to wander around and like they never directed you where to walk, yet you all like somehow ended up at the right spot at the right time. And I think part of that may have been the script too, because it was so redundant. But like there was also like a way that the actors like moved around and kind of tempted you with oranges or tempted you to move you.
I love food in theater. I love it.
Yeah, but like there was like ways that he directed that show that made you see, and even though people saw it in a different order, and like the show was probably different for everyone who saw it, which I think it was kind of the point, but there's always a way to get people to do it subtly, and I feel like if you really want to talk about it, there's also a way to like introduce exposition with dialogue in the same way, like, you know, like you don't have to be like, come on, John, my best friend from Jonesville High School, like let's go meet some ladies. You can just be like, hey, and then just like there's a silence. Like I feel like sometimes in theater we're giving up on the intelligence of our audience.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we're just giving up on them, and so we feel like we have to over-explain ourselves sometimes. And sometimes, relating it back to site specific, because I know I'm going off the rails.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm here for you. But even with site-specific stuff, like I feel like we sometimes are not giving them enough credit. You know, like I know, like even like, do we need a guy to hustle, or do we want the person to find the wires in the weird corner?
Well, and the
Do you know what I mean?
too is that like you have to trust your audience enough to know that they are there to see a show, right? And they're there and they've bought into this thing. And the reason why you're finding the wires is because you are looking for that.
Mm-hmm.
As an audience member, that's why you do that. Wherein a lot of other audience members are there to suspend that disbelief, or they're there to buy into that story.
And how do you, so then the fun that I have, and the thing that kind of really gets me going is trying to expand awareness of possibility and how to make it okay for the person who's looking for the wires to have that experience and like hide something behind the wires for them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yes, to build in those, what we would call them like invitations, like an invitation or suggestion to like, follow me and do this, whatever. And if you say no, that's totally fine, and we're gonna leave, and you're gonna be alone in this room, but also there are clues hidden everywhere, and you can have your own experience, you know?
I'm totally gonna bring up girls and be Westworld right now.
I haven't seen the girls' episode,
But the girls with that, like when all of the people are going through the theatrical experience, through all of the high-rise of
Sorry.
She knows what's up.
Yeah. No, but like, and what I love about it, and just to get into the characters, they're still so narcissistic that they don't even understand how they're ruining their own experience. Like, they're just ruining their own experience.
Wait, can you explain what the girls' episode was?
Okay, so basically they go to Adam, Hannah's boyfriend's
Ex-boyfriend.
I thought, welcome. I'm here for you. They go to his like theater show that he's in, but it takes place in like 3 apartment buildings in like in a loop. Like you open the gate and there's 3 apartment buildings and you can enter whatever, and there's all these 1950s stories going on, and you can enter a room and experience a story, or you can go upstairs or enter another building and experience all these stories. And everyone is so obsessed with what's going on in their own life at that point that they all end up in rooms where none of the actors are, and they're like, this is fucking bullshit, what is going on? But then it also shows like shots through windows where like actual scenes are happening, but they're so not paying attention to what's going on that they can't figure it out. And I feel like Westworld now, if anyone's watching Westworld.
Oh yeah, we're watching Westworld.
Definitely watch it.
Definitely watch
HBO.
Westworld. But it's the same kind of thing. I mean, Westworld in and of itself encompasses what you're trying to do. Like it is
Immersive experience.
It's immersive, it's site specific.
Or like Harry Potter World, or the Ren Fair.
Oh god, yeah.
Sorry, nerd.
Yeah, I love that y'all brought up theme parks, because I friggin' love theme parks.
Yeah.
Because it's all about how do we create a world that you can inhabit, and that can tell a story through place. Now those are incredibly 100% designed. So my thought is like, okay, how do you take some of those techniques, little small things that they do with sound or with light, or with actors and humans, their smells, and take that to transform an existing space, or just as a tool to build out a theatrical experience that is going to be, taking place within a set amount of time, that gets at some of the same things and can help tell a story and help let people play around in that world for a little bit.
Well, it's like when you brought up smell, it's like when the Our Town with bacon. Who did that? David, what was his name? Here in Chicago. The guy from Columbia.
Oh, yes.
But when he did the Our Town with the bacon, no one can remember his name. He was
Don't say that.
he was in Newsroom.
Yeah.
He was in the opening.
We love you, David, with the bacon.
I know who you are. And I saw your Our Town with the bacon.
We saw it.
And you remember it because of the smell.
Because of the smells. Yeah, but the bacon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Cromer. I got you.
We got you, David Cromer.
He's watching right now, actually.
Yeah, Sean Green.
He's watching.
So okay,
Huh?
so we've talked.
No one's watching.
So we've talked
We have
about
people.
We've talked about site-specific theater and like traveling with site-specific theater. But what about like an audience that sits and is watching the play in a site-specific space?
People do that? They sit to watch plays?
Do they?
What?
Oh my goodness
Really?
gracious! I mean, do you think it's different? Do you think it's still? Do you think it's?
Well, I think that's the difference between site-specific and immersive, right? An immersive piece, being able to walk around to experience, whether you're guided or not, that's being a part of it and taking yourself as an audience member and inserting yourself into that and allowing yourself to be in there, and that's immersive to me. And then site-specific, separate from that, you can sit, and there's action happening, and you can sit and watch the thing happen and be more of a fly on the wall. And there could be some immersiveness happening insight specific and vice versa. So I think like they go hand in hand, but they also could be separated in some ways.
Well, and if you look at a lot of like the off Broadway stuff that happened like in the 60s and 70s, like, and you look at like immersive stuff, like I can't remember the name of it because I'm a terrible person, but there was the play that like it was very Greek, and the entire audience like in the 60s, like it was the 60s.
So they were naked and high.
Well, but the actors were like, but it was like they did like a whole like train of people that were naked and like gave birth. You've seen this video,
No, I just guessed that they were naked.
No, they were all naked, but it was also immersive. So at one point they have like this huge moment where they were all naked and dancing, and they invited the audience in to get naked and dance with them in the 60s, and it became this whole thing where like audience members, like it was like, okay, we're bordering on rape, like terrible things are happening and we're trying to do this. It was like Greek story. God, I wish I could be informed.
Is it Hair the musical?
Huh?
Hair the musical?
No, this was before Hair. It was like when off Broadway was still like in like Joe's Pub before it became.
That reminds me of an SVU episode that we saw.
Law and Order SVU?
Yeah, about that play in New York that I mentioned earlier, Sleep No More. And there was a murder scene that took place in the show, but everyone thought it was part of the show, and it was actually a real murder.
Yeah, that happened in Miami.
Wait, a real murder happened on
That
stage?
really happened.
No.
That's
So
scary.
what Anna
It's
was
happened
saying
before.
was there was an SVU episode in which
Oh.
these things happened in the
Sorry.
episode.
Yes.
So there was no actual rape or murder.
Isn't there a play about that where they're like? I
Wasn't
saw
it the
play.
girls episode?
I mean, this is just something that is being recycled.
Yeah.
But okay, so thinking about your question,
I want to Google the
about
play
like,
right
why-
now so I can tell you what
why
it is.
would you? I guess part of why I'm drawn to site-specific and site-responsive theater, and a part of that is to sort of strip away some of the conventions that you would traditionally associate with theater. So for me, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but for me, I do sort of have the like, well, why? Why would you just sit and watch a thing? Like, especially if they're, we live in a world where we have screens in our pockets that can play us anything at any time. Like TV and movies, I mean, we're talking about it. How many movies and TV shows have we referenced here? Like, that stuff is great. Like, and it's so good right now. We're living in such a great time for that. So I just think, like, why at any point would you want to like sit down in an actual room with people to just watch them when there's a possibility? It always feels like a missed possibility, especially if you're not in a theater and you are somewhere else and you have the ability to shake up that audience contract. So yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with you that they can overlap, they can be separated out. But in my head, I'm sort of like, well, why not? Like, the thing is right there. You can just walk over it. You know what I mean?
Well, and I guess to defend or play devil's advocate against
Sure.
that, I think it would be just because you're purely trying to tell a story, and sometimes interaction can interfere with the story, and it depends on whether you're trying to tell a story or whether you're trying to have people participate. And it depends on how important the story is or how important participation is.
Well, I mean, one thing is, like, I would push back on the idea that something participatory can't also have a story at its core and deliver story in a really effective way. But also, I just think about, like, well, but you could also film it. Like, right now, we're having a conversation just with us. We're not you know, like interacting with other people.
There are other people watching.
There are absolutely
Shout out to Ken Ballard. Thank you for your comment. There was a fictional real murder in a fictional setting.
So and these people can interact with us through that screen, but they're also watching on a screen separate. So it's sort of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that in today's world, the liveness of theater kind of loses its luster unless you're attacking it from a different angle, unless you're really exploring what it means to be live in a room with someone. I've had so many experiences, just personally, I guess, at plays lately where I feel like, oh, this play would be exactly the same if there was no one in the audience. And part of that has to do with like how well the performers were responding to the energy of the room, yeah? But part of it is also, I think our expectations change when we have so much media at our fingertips.
Do you know what though? It's because we have so much media at our fingertips that the audiences don't want to interact. They want this safety of being not seen, and like it's like I'm behind a screen or like the action is happening over there separate from me. And so how do we as site-specific writers take their safety, challenge them a little, but still allow them to have that? And what I like about roaming theater specifically is the audience can choose how much they're involved as an individual. You can choose that. And I write site-specific theater for people to sit because I want to allow them to have that, and I still build in moments of interaction so those who want to interact can still interact. But you were about to say something.
No, it's okay. You have the floor. I've talked too much already. Like, I'm like fully willing to give you the floor. All I'm saying, I feel like there is almost an issue with the simplicity of theater being ignored sometimes. I'm not saying anybody's doing it, but like the simplicity of theater and the fact that you're sitting next to a stranger and you're sharing an emotional experience, like, and it's a shared experience with everyone who's sitting around you, and I feel like sometimes we all get a little crazy because we're all like, how do we make it different? How do we make it crazy? How do we make it new? How do we, but sometimes you just fucking sit down with a group of strangers and you watch an amazing Othello where Iago comes out into the audience and spits on your face during a soliloquy, and you lose your mind.
100%. And like, no knock against that.
Because you're like, ew, or because you're like, ooh.
And there's no knocking that, and I think there's absolutely a place for that, and I'm so happy that that exists.
But
and there's also so much more that's possible.
There's absolutely much more that's possible. But like, even like, I'm just gonna share an analogy that happened today. My boss, who makes a shit ton more money than I do, got tickets to Hamilton because he's fucking looking. And went and saw Hamilton, but he's not a theater guy. But he also knows I used to be his assistant. He also knows I'm obsessed with Hamilton. So he went and saw Hamilton, and I was like, why didn't you just give me your ticket? You're not going to enjoy this in the proper way. Just give me your ticket. But he didn't. He went and he saw it. And then when I was like, how was it? Like, please tell me how. Like, I was like, tell me! And he was like, I don't know. It was super weird. Like, I didn't know it was going to be sad. Everyone is like obsessed with the show. And then all of a sudden, like, everyone around me is crying. And I didn't know what to. And I was like, yeah, it's called a shared experience. That's called theater. That's what this is. And as much as, like, I appreciate, like, I want us to explore new options and new ways to do this, sometimes I think we just need to kind of lay back and be like, you know what? Sometimes what works. And how do we take what works?
Really prefer sitting.
Depends on the story too, though.
Yeah, true.
And also how they've been prepped to go into it and what they signed up for.
For sure. So we actually have a question from our audience.
We have a question from Pamela Villars.
Okay.
Hi, Aunt Pam. Hello, Mother. This is my mom. At what point does it become possible for the audience to become the play if the audience is given the choice?
That's a really good question. I actually wanted to ask that too, so thanks, Pam, for Aunt Pam.
Love you, Mom.
Yeah. So at what point? I want to know specifically from Alejandro, actually, because you're so into the roaming. So
yeah, and you know, not even just when things are roaming. I had the great fortune of working on a show called How to End Poverty in 90 Minutes with Sojourn Theater, and the director of that, Michael Road, would often talk about the audience as the protagonist. That was a show that did not have a through narrative. There were moments of story and narrative delivered within it, but really the main thrust of the show was this choice that the audience was going to make. We put $1,000 on stage. We say it's your choice, the whole audience, to decide where
is it real money?
Real actual cash
money. That's so cool. All right.
Where this money is going to go to fight poverty in this area, and we're going to donate this money tonight, and y'all have to decide where it's going to go. And so we would talk a lot as we were building that show. We would talk a lot about the audience as the protagonist and their choice being the central thrust. It's a very different way of thinking about a show. In Dog Night, we had a similar thing where we thought a lot about and tried to structure it where we can have some crazy characters, we can have some people that folks can follow or be inspired to follow throughout the piece, but how do we keep the option open for the audience, for any given audience member to make themselves the protagonist? Not that they have to act, not that they have to perform, but that their experience is central, is primal, is far more important than any kind of emotional experience we have or we are trying to deliver to them through our acting. So yeah, I love trying